News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast. The whole crew is here. But we first start off with Josh McQuistion, Eddie Radosevich, Bob Przbillo, and myself. George is doing what he does. He's making calls. He's writing stories. He will be here in just a bit. A lot of you have got to see plenty of George. He's on the YouTube channel. We put up a new practice report yesterday. Kind of the schedule that we're going with now is Tuesdays will be a practice report, somewhere around 30 minutes or so, kind of a recap of by the time we do the first show, it's in the afternoon right after Brent Venables' press conference. So we'll go out, we'll have, on Mondays, we have Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof. They do their own press conferences in the afternoon or the evening. We go out to the practice field. Practice access this week, by the way. It's been fantastic.
Ridiculous.
16 players that we were given to.
8 and 8.
On both days. It's almost too much. I can't say that, though. Sorry. No, Mike Houck, we really appreciate all the access. And OU, appreciate all the access and the lack of suspensions that are going on so far in spring. We'll talk about that some, too. Also, so Mondays, all that goes on. Tuesdays, and then Monday evening, the stories are all written. Tuesdays, Brent Venables' press conference happens in the afternoon or early afternoon. And then we come in, we do the first practice report on YouTube. Then today, Wednesday, we'll do the podcast. We'll do some of the, I don't know, we should change the game day preview to just game preview. There's all kind. Look, we appreciate all the feedback on the YouTube page. And let me just say this first. Like, this is not the final version of anything. Like, this is a work in progress. Like, I know, why are you doing it from a closet? Like, no, it's just the set that we have now. I've actually ordered a bunch of shit that's coming in to make the set better. It's just we have to build it in stages. So it will get better. It's not a finished product. We're always going to be improving and all that. So, you know what? Just realize that, and you can can the why are you doing it from a closet comments. Anyway, we are here, and we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. Eddie Radosevich is who is apartment building that he basically tried to boycott or get people to boycott, has screwed him once again, I believe.
Yeah, that was quite the to do on Monday night when I got home. I never read the emails that they send out, like the whatever they are. I just never read them.
It was direct mail or something.
I never read them. It's just like stuff from the apartment that I never read, because usually it's like a
community
newsletter, about Sarah down on floor 4 that whatever. I'd never read that stuff. But Monday night when I got home, and Mondays are already a pretty long day. You're kind of getting back into the swing of things. We're down here for Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof, and then we stay for practice. So I didn't get home until like 9 o'clock. I'm trying to get ready to eat dinner. I'd stopped at Cava to get something on the way home. I wanted to watch the end of the Jacksonville the Carolina New Orleans game, and I wanted to watch it was like halftime of the Pittsburgh
Browns and Steelers.
Browns
Which
game.
was not worth watching.
And so I got home, and I realized when I got home that all these emails that they had been sending me were basically notifications that they were changing all the locks in the apartment complex. And it's like an electronic thing. So to get into my apartment, I had to have an access code, and it took me about 20 minutes.
The new access code was in the community bulletin.
Yes, it was in the emails that they had been sending. So I was literally standing in the middle of the hallway trying to figure out like where these emails are. It was a fun Monday evening nonetheless, but I got in and now I have a key, so we're good to go. But it was a big to do.
I want to say we are recording. That is happening today. So I spent a full day, what is it? Words are escaping right now. Familiarizing myself with the new mixer. So I've got that all. Like Bob's mic wasn't working right before. I pushed a button on the iPad.
Boom, I'm here.
So there you go. We also have George has got a great story that I want to ask him about when he comes in a little bit later. More dating life stuff, which I'm
sure he'll be excited to talk about.
I know he won't be, but
Can't wait.
I think I'm a fan of what I don't know how many girls he's dating, but this one.
He's dating one.
Is he dating just one?
Yeah, it was never multiple.
Stuff, man. Don't start stuff.
I'm pretty sure she doesn't listen to the podcast. I mean,
Well, I don't think he wants to be talking about it publicly.
but it's not. Anyway, I'll ask him when he comes in. And
George, leave!
the other thing is we have a new intern helping us out in the helping us out in the office. And Josh, I want to relay this story. Eddie and I have not been on good terms today, but I have this really good story about Eddie. So the interns, we've talked about this a lot. Eddie does not like change. He fears change.
I don't fear change. I fear people f***ing up.
You didn't know. That's not it. That has nothing to do with it. You just don't like it when things change. You didn't like your new camera.
Still don't like it.
You don't like 4K.
I hate it. Nobody cares.
Actually, people are posting a lot about how much they enjoy the phone. People
Those
buy
people
the
are
expensive,
losers.
The people buy the expensive TVs. They want to watch shit in 4K. That's how it goes. You look good in 4K.
I'd look at great in
Standard
whatever the
definition.
8K.
Standard.
8K is the
Standard
next.
definition.
6K is actually out there.
I'm a strict standard definition kind of guy. I know this about myself.
Well, by the end of this week, we'll have 15 TVs in the studio, all of them 4K. I don't have a single TV at home that's even 1080p. Like, all my flat screens were bought before HD was official. And they're not smart either. I have to have Apple TVs in order to watch any streaming. But no, we have a new intern, and I tried to present some things to Eddie about how we could, do his video and things like that. And I don't think Eddie likes the intern at all. He's barely spoken to him. I described it this way. It's like, I don't know why, but like on TikTok, it just shows me cat videos all the time. It was literally like if you had a cat and you tried to introduce a kitten into the environment. And like that old cat that's been around. Like
I know him.
I've
seen him at games.
And then he hisses at him.
We talk all the time at games. I don't know
But
what you're
he's not in
talking
your
about.
office. He's invading your space. You don't like it.
I was trying to get stuff done for the show.
Mm-hmm. That was yesterday.
What am I supposed to do? Sit and
the
talk
first
to
day
him?
you weren't.
Catch up with him?
Well, just be a little nice to him. Say, hey, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Normal
Now,
people say things like that.
The thing I'll say, Eddie, is this guy, from what I understand, and
Pierce is
correct
his
me if
name.
I'm wrong. Pierce, like he knows video, right? Like he can take some crap off your plate. Like I would think you would
That's
be
why he's
over
here.
the
Yes.
moon about this human
That's
being.
why he's here. But Eddie wants none of it. He wants nothing taken off of his plate.
I don't think any of this is accurate.
Okay. I don't want to get too into this because, like I said, Eddie and I are at odds today over things. But no, we need to work on your welcoming skills, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, you're like the most beloved person at Sooner Scoop.
I know.
So I think
Hashtag
Eddie,
humble
that's
brag.
That's a fact. I know this.
All right. Moving on. What do we want to hit?
People were chanting my name at the Tulsa game.
Were they really?
Yeah, in the stands.
Well, that's not the first time that's happened.
It was
Eddie, do
good
we
to be
wanna
amongst
talk-
my people.
We talked about George's love life. Eddie seemed to be making a connection on the sideline. A lot of people are asking
No.
on the Crimson Corner about that.
That's dumb.
See, now you're going to be at odds with him before this day
That's
is
fine.
over.
That's fine. I got to be there sometimes. Eddie and I don't butt heads a lot. I guess I don't butt heads with much of anything.
You don't
City,
butt heads
it's the
with
Putnam
anybody.
City kinship.
Yeah, we got Putnam City.
That could
Brotherhood.
go sideways really fast, though.
Yeah, nowadays it'd probably end up in a shooting.
Well, we're no stranger to shootings.
Oh God.
So, anyway, we've got all kinds of stuff to talk about. Look, we're podcasting on Wednesday about, what are we, at 11:30 right now? Danny Okoye is going to have his commitment announcement. You may be listening to this pod after it's already happened. We'll have full coverage on that, depending on how that goes. Tonight, we'll talk to Josh here in a little bit about how he thinks it's going to go. We also have Cincinnati coming up. I've seen that maybe the board found some. It's hard in this day and age because you don't know what's fake and what's not. But the board has apparently found some negative comments from the coach Satterfield.
I mean, are they negative or are they fact?
That they beat Dillon Gabriel?
Dillon Gabriel is 0-2 at Cincinnati. Now, he got beat by Louisville when Satterfield was there, I believe. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it is fact. He hasn't played well in Cincinnati. 4 interceptions.
To say it on your radio show right before you play someone?
I just feel like everything is so manufactured these days by the media. Like the Dion stuff in Jay Norvell last week. That was the biggest...
Well, that was a subtweet essentially to Dion. I mean, I don't know why Jay Norvell is one of the most buttoned up, nice guys that you'll ever run across. I don't know why he went down that road. Of course, I shouldn't be saying that because I'm an asshole.
I mean, it just felt like maybe. I just felt like it was one of those things that was so manufactured that I'm so sick of hearing about Colorado. I hope they get murdered this weekend.
Well, they're not going to have Travis, what's his name?
Hunter.
So
yeah, he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks.
They're going to get murdered by Oregon and USC.
The fact is, they played awful Saturday night and were a 23.5-point underdog or a favorite and still had to go to double overtime. Now, I think we're pretty familiar with something like that covering Oklahoma over the last, however many years. But the whole thing it's a lot. And so the Satterfield stuff, I don't think Dillon Gabriel is going to play better because he was talking about
It's not like
him.
he played well against Tulsa because he hadn't beaten Tulsa.
Right.
We had the same
they were
scenario
0-2 against Tulsa.
So.
Well, I don't know if you brought it up, Eddie, on Monday, but somebody mentioned revenge tour and he laughed at it. I mean,
no, it wasn't. It wasn't me. I don't remember who asked him that, but it's just the whole thing. But it does kind of talk about what has been, I think, a theme of the week in terms of what we talked about. George and me talked about on the YouTube show yesterday. It's like if this thing is on the trajectory, and Carey, you've talked about this in the War Room as well. This is a massive, massive game for the program.
It's a crossroads game.
Yeah, is this real?
Well, and my point was, I'm back here monitoring the press conference. We're beaming it back into studio so we can get it up faster, so we can take things off Eddie's plate. I'm sitting there. I'm kind of having to be, backseat driver to the way that questions are being asked. And my point was, when you guys came back to the office, we usually kind of break it down and talk about it. But why are we asking all the big picture culture questions 3 games into the season when you're coming off of a season where you had a Nebraska win, everybody was high on the hog, and then it all fell apart?
That's exactly why.
This is that's why they're asking why the culture has changed.
Because why is it different then? You just had a 3-0 year and then you fell apart.
They're going to play actual football games that are going to tell us the answer to that. And you know what? If you write that story, and this is going back to the George thing about Tawee Walker, if you write that story now and they go out and lose, you're going to look like a moron because you wasted so much time talking about a culture change when no one knows. You think Brent Venables knows if the culture has really changed? You think he thought it changed 3 games into the season last year like he was on the right track?
I think you could say that the culture has changed and it's still not come together on the field. I think that the culture has changed in a way, but how does that equate to wins on the football field on Saturday?
The culture, you can feel like the culture's changed, but then when you're losing 4 or 5 games, that culture goes to shit.
Yeah, and they haven't faced any adversity this year. What happens when
exactly?
What happens if you fumble the opening kickoff in Cincinnati and you don't get a turnover, and all of a sudden you build a 10-0 hole or something?
Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in seeing. To say that I think that's going to happen.
Does Danny Stutzman seem like the big leader that's turned it around and is
everything up to now makes
practices during the offseason?
Everything up to now makes you think that it has, but
they haven't played anybody. I mean, I think SMU's better than people give them credit for. But I mean, they played Prairie View A&M last week, so we don't know yet.
I mean, we'll find out more about SMU this week with TCU coming to, or I don't know if they play in Fort Worth or Dallas, but
is that the Skillet game, the Iron Skillet?
Yeah, last one.
Yeah, Iron Skillet.
Yeah, the last
it's at
one.
TCU.
It's in Fort Worth.
Yep.
Okay.
But my point being, let's just hold off. I mean, we don't need to write. The story is still going. You're trying to write the end right now. It's not over. It's just beginning.
It does take a little bit of. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was going to say our old buddy Dorian hit me up. I want to give him a little shout out. He's always been a long time pod listener, but he was telling me, he goes, you guys should go back and listen to the post Nebraska pod and see how similar that sounded to the post game pod from Tulsa. And like I think that's a good reminder for people, like, and probably us included. Like, there was this feeling after Nebraska, like, well, God, they're going to be even better than anybody thought. Like, this is all. Sure. Lincoln Riley was really underdoing it. And then obviously from there, you went 3-7. So
and you realized at that point you had to face reality that the roster turnover was much more dramatic. I mean, look at what Oklahoma State's going through right now. They had a similar roster turnover, except Oklahoma, they brought in a quarterback that's actually pretty decent. And he's better than everybody was giving him credit for at the beginning of the season. I saw he was, one of the Manning Award candidates this week. I mean, and I know
Jeff Levy should have brought in his kid.
I love that little kid. He's always running around the sidelines. Like his actual kid? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, I was confused for a second.
Oh, I mean more of there's, from what I can gather, there's clearly one guy that shouldn't be playing of that three-headed quarterback monster in Stillwater.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but he's the most athletic, and behind that offensive line, they have to have somebody that can move.
Fair.
You guys were always really high on Gunner in high school.
I thought he was a really good high school football player.
Yeah.
Like, is he a take Oklahoma State to win 8 or 9 games quarterback? No. Not at all.
Offensive line.
No.
I don't know if Caleb Williams could do that with that offense.
I think Caleb Williams could. He might be the only person that could.
Yes. Caleb Williams could take that team to 8 wins.
He probably wouldn't finish
the
season,
team, guys.
It's terrible.
There was one national guy, I won't name him by name, that picked OSU. I don't know if he picked him to win the Big 12, but picked him, I think, to be in the Big 12 championship game. There's no way on earth. It was a guy who liked white t-shirts a lot.
They had one first place vote, so someone had to.
But back to the roster turnover. Like, when OU started losing, we realized, oh shit, like this is a much bigger deal than we made it out to be. Because all of a sudden you realize there is no depth, and the guys that are the frontline players aren't good enough. I mean, Ethan Downs is having a hell of a season, I think, so far, but he and Reggie Grimes were two of the bigger problems last year, and neither one of them start when the game kicks off.
I mean, look at the defensive end position. And talking about Reggie Grimes, he doesn't play.
Nope.
He played against Tulsa, but you didn't see any. You couldn't tell unless you noticed him running across the field.
I mean, I think that, and like you said, Ethan has had a really good season to date.
He's really good. He's been one of the better players on defense. But, he comes... I think Ethan benefits from the fact that he's not on the field the entire game. He comes in after Rondell Bothroyd, and look, we can talk more about this because you're going to see more PJ out of now I'm stuck on his name because he's pronounced it.
Okay, Hal walked me through this yesterday. There's 5 syllables. Adaborara, I think is how he explained it.
It's not Adabora.
Not A at the end.
It sounds like an A.
I can find it and play it.
It's
on
there.
How tweeted.
I think what we need to do is
night.
Somebody at post practice yesterday said we just need to clip that, and every time that we say PJ's name, we just play him saying it.
Here we go.
Adibawara, Boomer.
Say it one more.
I am Adipaju Adibawara.
Adibawara.
See.
Adibari.
That end is hard, man.
I am Adipaju Adibawara.
Adabaraway.
I'm not sure my tongue does that thing at the end. I don't know how to do that.
So borrowed in the middle. That's how I remember it. Borrow, the word borrow.
Adabaraway.
And I think that somebody...
Boom! Adabaraway.
I think somebody actually said, too, that...
Hold on.
I am Adipaju Adibawara.
That Ray kind of is... I don't know that my lips can do that.
There's an E. Adibaraway.
I am Adipaju Adibawara.
Adipaju is much easier.
PJ's easy too.
Yeah, which is why I go with PJ.
It's really funny too. I think Eli Letterman or somebody said that they talked to his brother and he says it completely different than PJ says it.
Interesting. Okay, so
I swear PJ told me differently when we talked. Like I
you did.
that
You
is
gave
not
us
what
a
we
different.
conversed about.
Yes, you did give us a different guide to it last year.
But guys, do you know he's already tied for second in the team in tackles for losses?
Yeah,
and tackles for loss in one game.
He is starting to. There's just little things, and I put out the clips of his game against Tulsa. There's just like the sack was awesome, the tackle for loss was awesome in the red zone, but the last clip
one
where he
really
runs down the guy on the sideline,
Yep.
like you can tell, like Chavis is in the background, like jumping for joy because he shows off something that they just haven't had at defensive end.
So let me get back to kind of the depth thing in the roster. So what's interesting to me, and I think you can tell Brent feels better about the defense because like guys like Makari Vickers are out there at key times, and I know that Gentry Williams would have been out there if he hadn't got the stinger or whatever it was. But I mean, you see Kip Lewis. I mean, Kip Lewis is out there during key times. It's like he feels more comfortable playing backups. Like he knows guys know the system more. And the safety position, I mean, it just seems like all of a sudden they got guys, and they've got guys on top of guys.
I mean, just look at the safety position going into this weekend.
But
Reggie Pearson's not going to play, and it's like, okay, that's okay.
But is this the Kool-Aid that we're drinking? Like,
But I mean,
like we feel like, okay, this looks different. It seems like they have guys they're developing. The roster seems deeper.
But they didn't trust those guys against SMU. They still
didn't play a lot of backups against SMU,
They needed a 14, 21-point cushion because even when Vickers was in, it's already 14-0, and then Stutzman gets the
I think it's safety. They feel pretty good. I don't know about cornerback.
But like Kip, like Vickers, like that's still, we need a little breathing room first.
I don't consider Vickers like in the rotation. Is that unfair?
Well, I mean,
like,
but then you got Kendall Dolby. I mean,
I would trust Woody, Gentry, Kanai, and Dolby.
I mean, Vickers had that bust, but Reggie Pearson had a bust that was just as bad or worse.
Yeah. But I mean, like if we were talking about the safety position, I think it's going to be Robert Spears Jennings, Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, and Key Lawrence. Like I trust all four of those guys.
You talk about a bad time for Pearson to have had an injury.
Yeah.
That game, guys, I mean, and I know Eddie's heard some similar stuff. I don't think that graded out well at all.
He might have had the worst.
That was real bad from Reggie Pearson.
It might have been the worst safety grade that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The term broils like was used to someone I talked to. So,
well,
that's
what Reggie Pearson could have used on the play where he bit on the out is better vision. Which you can get. I mean, if you're not born with it, it's easy to get it. It is time for the Enjoy Fresh Perspective look around, which we did a lot of looking around. And I know the guys were in here rewatching the game. Josh does the Monday Morning Idiot every week on the Crimson Quarter. So he obviously has very good vision. But our man, Eddie Radosevich, when he is not staring down interns, he is using his vision for good.
I was seeing through him. And that's because I was able to go to Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, and it's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the U40 listener is they're giving $400 off LASIK. So if you're interested, go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY withme.com, and use promo code U40 for $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right. Cincinnati coming up. I think one of the things that you and George talked a lot about yesterday, and Bob, you were there with Caden Green when he was talking to the media on Monday, and just the story about him being moved and the timing of it all.
Yeah,
it is. I like the move just from the fact that I think we all believe that they don't have a lot of options. If Savion Byrd, we kind of said it when the season started, if he wasn't the answer, we didn't know what they would do. I mean, we talked a lot in here about, maybe you move Andrew Rame to guard, you put Everett at center. But if Caden Green could come in there, maybe this is Bill Bedenbaugh's kind of Ben Powers moment this weekend where everything kind of comes together.
Yeah, and just interesting in talking with Caden, the way like Bill calls me into the meeting. I have no idea what the heck is going on, and I'm being moved to guard. And I mean, he looked okay there Saturday. It was obviously a huge surprise that he was the first guy to go. It wasn't Troy Everett. It was Caden Green. Like, they got Jacob Sexton back, so now Caden can start working at guard. And, I mean, if he can pull it off, I mean, there'd be one heck of a way to get things started against that Cincinnati defensive line, to be able to play at a high level. McCade, Rame, they're huge in terms of his development, but that is a lot to ask in such a short period of time.
Well, and Josh, overall offensive line-wise, when you're breaking it down, I mean, where do you see the breakdowns happening the most? Is Guyton playing well in your mind? Is Rame doing better at center? Like, how do you look at that?
That's a really timely question, because I thought Rame and Guyton had been clearly the two best through the first 2 weeks. I thought they had played the most consistent. Obviously, with Guyton, you get these flashes of really elite stuff. Guyton had a howler at Tulsa. That's as bad as he's played since early last year. Just a lot of mental errors. He got beat badly by Ostrowski on I don't think it ended up being a sack, but it was definitely a pressure on Dillon Gabriel. Just stuff that you're like, you're better than this. I know you. Even kind of sleepwalking, you should be more dominant than this. Andrew Rame, I thought, was okay, better than the SMU game a little bit. I know a lot of people were really down on the interior after that SMU game. I didn't think it was as bad as some did, but it wasn't good. I mean, there's no question. I think when I watch it, like, it's usually one guy. Like, 4 guys are doing what they want, and it seems to vary. Like, it's not always the same guy. And I will say, I thought Savion Byrd was playing really well before he went out of the game. He had some nice moments. I graded him poorly in the report card. I was just wrong. I just kind of assumed he'd gone out for poor play and had missed the whole injury thing. Saturday I was a little delirious, so you got to forgive me for that a little bit.
But we were actually trying to Zapruder that in the office to figure out when he got the concussion, and it was tough to even tell.
It had to have been on that second drive.
Because he's in for that extra point.
Right. And so
then he goes down and he stays down.
After the extra point is when he laid on the ground. I think the TV broadcast.
Point, he did that thing where he just plowed his knees into the ground, didn't move. Like, he wasn't standing up. He was weird. Like, literally like just forming a wall.
But the 2 plays before on the 2nd and 6 is when I feel like he goes down to the ground for the first time and he has trouble getting up. Like,
is that when he was getting pushed backwards and his head was kind of bobbing?
That's when he's up against, like, he down blocked right, so he's on, like, the OU side of the field, the sideline, and he had trouble getting up. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, he had a concussion. That's what happened.
Well,
yeah, and
what do you think about what do you think about Caden Green being thrown in there?
I thought Caden played pretty well. I mean, like, for a guy like like Bob's talking about, that kind of got thrown into the fire, had very little experience. I mean, this is not a guy that played some guard in high school. To my knowledge, Caden was a full-time tackle for Lee Summit North. So if he did it, it was early in his career, that kind of stuff. But he's a big, strong guy, very physical. I mean, he's not going to be like pushed around for weight, like with Everett. Like, you worry about Everett running into, and I know a lot of people talk about Corleone, but Jawan Briggs, I remember him from being a recruit. He was a, kind of national recruit out of high school because he was like 6 foot and could bench press a house. Like, he's very physically developed at a very young age. So, like, I remember him being very powerful. And you wonder a little bit about him getting his hands on Everett and kind of throwing him around a little bit. So I think Caden's probably more able to deal with that a little bit. But again, he's a guy playing in his 4th college game. Like, those guys are veterans. Like, there's gonna be some bad moments for him if it ends up being him. But I think he's the best option of what we've seen. I still would love to see Jake Taylor get a look there. I think Jake's nastiness, his experience, like, he feels like a guy that makes sense. But OU just seems bound and determined on him being a tackle. And when I watch him at tackle, you guys know I love Jake Taylor, but I don't see it there. I don't think that's where he's at his best.
Does it say something about maybe where they obviously are high on Caden Green to make that move? I think it tells you even more. It's like, we need to get if we're truly getting the best 5 out on the field, that tells you that Caden Green's come in and at least made waves a little bit, right?
Really well.
It's kind of like what you asked Brent
Yeah.
yesterday about him and Peyton playing multiple positions. Like, they're not doing that with everybody. And I think if you watch the YouTube show that we did talking about Peyton Bowen, like, you talk to him, you would think that he's been in college for 3 or 4 years. Like, he just has a sense of maturity about him. We've only talked to Caden that one time, but it seems like he has kind of the same mold as far as you can throw a lot at him. They feel comfortable enough to do it, and not only comfortable enough to do it, but you're throwing him up against the defensive line that might be the second best group that they play all year.
Yeah, I had to ask it because remember Grayson Holton, that was the story of last year. Like, oh, it wasn't fair to this guy to be defensive end, defensive tackle, to be going back and forth. And then here, the very next class with true freshmen like Caden and Peyton, like, you guys can do it. So we're just going to keep throwing you out there, and you're going to keep showing us that you can handle it. And with Bowen, it's like, I'm like, I don't know if that true freshman moment's going to come. You know, he seems always to be on top of where he needs to be. Now, he might not always get the pick, but he's always in position. It's been just startling to see.
Peyton Bowen makes it look easy.
Yep.
Just like prime shrimp is easy. All you got to do is boil some water, take that bag of shrimp, whatever choice you want to make, the garlic or butter, the New Orleans-style barbecue, the signature Cajun season. Take that shrimp and throw it on the ground. No, don't do that. Throw it in the boiling water. In less than 10 minutes, you'll have a restaurant-quality meal. And guess what? If you use the promo code U40, you'll get 25% off your first order of $50 or more. Exceptionally made, exceptionally simple, just craveable meal solutions from primeshrimp.com. Go check it out, primeshrimp.com, Prime shrimp.com. I don't think they're going to have to change the name if Dion keeps winning, because I think Oregon and USC are getting ready to take him down. But lemon and cracked pepper, I know, Josh, you've had pretty much all of them, haven't you?
I have. And again, I'll say it again. The New Orleans style barbecue, is
that the new
Tiffany's?
Favorite?
Yeah, that's a go-to for us. She likes that because, again, man, we're all the time. You know, bring the girls home from school and we're fixing them dinner, and then we've got to get to gymnastics or swim or whatever other parental duties are out there. So you got to do something quick, and those are awesome. They're really well flavored. Like I live 10 minutes from live shrimp. Like it would not be hard for me to go get some, but it's not necessary. Like I think Prime Shrimp really absolutely is an outstanding, it's something we actually eat. It's not just a sponsor here.
All right. Use that promo code U40, get 25% off your total order of $50 or more. Okay. Tonight, the Danny Okoye commitment is going to happen, Josh. Obviously, we're going to go down and cover it or go up and cover it in Tulsa. If things go well, maybe we'll have an interview with him. But Josh, this is something that you've been tracking. First off, Danny Okoye, let's talk about a little bit about him as a player. What would he add to this class that is already shaping up to be top 10?
I've been a huge fan of Danny since he was a sophomore. And it was a deal where I was watching another player, and you just saw this big, long kid, and he's running all over the place and, just making plays, and he's violent. Like, everywhere you see him, like, there is a path of destruction. And I watch him as a senior, and it's the same thing. He's just bigger, faster, and stronger. Danny is he's an athlete, and I was talking to Eddie about this before we started the pod. Like, I could hear a conversation where you tell me Danny Okoye is like a top 10 overall athletic profile in the class of 2024. Like, he is that physically gifted, because people see him and they think, oh, well, he just looks that big because he's playing smaller and lesser opponents. Like, and he is. Like, there's no question. He's not facing a lot of D1 talent. you stand next to Danny Okoye, he is every bit of 6'4". He is every bit of 240 pounds. He lives in the weight room. Like his stories about him waking up at like 5 a.m. and going and getting workouts in and stuff like that. Like that's almost like legend kind of at Noah right now. So when you talk though about an explosive edge rusher, you're just not going to find many with that twitch. I would even say I don't know that PJ has that kind of twitch, and we all know what I think of PJ Adibaware, whatever. But there is, as a natural pass rusher with his length, his strength, he has no idea what he's doing. Like people are going to have to be patient with him, but with the growth we're already seeing from PJ, I have no question they will find a role for Danny next year being a third down pass rusher, kind of like they're doing on the inside with Grayson Halton and Jonah Lalu. Like there's a lot of ways you could do that, but just him turning the corner, there's not a lot of offensive tackles that can deal with his size and speed. He is a uniquely gifted athlete.
That's all on the understanding and idea that he does end up committing to Oklahoma on Wednesday night, right?
Of course. I mean, like, again, that's in the context of what is Oklahoma going to get if they land him.
Sure.
He is, for those that haven't followed, he's down to Tennessee, Texas, and Oklahoma. I think, and I think I said this last week, when he canceled that visit to Texas, which was going to be an unofficial, last weekend for the Wyoming game, and who knows if that would have impressed him or not. But I think that was pretty clear that Texas was probably out there, and it feels very much like if there's any it's pretty clear. I think it's going to be Oklahoma, but if there's a wild card, there's no question it's Tennessee. Talking to Danny going into that Oklahoma visit, I think it was very clear that Tennessee had really impressed him. He really liked that staff. And I think there was even some feeling around Norman that maybe he wouldn't take that trip because Tennessee absolutely did not want him to make that trip for completely understandable reasons. But I think he was afraid, what if I go down there and love it? And from everything I've gathered, he loved it. It went very, very well. I know talking to him, there was a conversation with Caleb Kelly that I think really, really resonated with him. Caleb kind of talked about, I was a 5-star. I was going to go to the NFL. And much like Danny, Caleb, this very big personality, very easy to connect with and like. And I think it hit home for Danny that, like, if this all didn't work out, if I go to OU and I tear up my knee or whatever, or if my career just doesn't go the way I want it to, I am an Oklahoma kid. I like the state of Oklahoma, and I can play at OU, and that will mean something after my career is over. Like I can go to a business, and they're going to say, Danny, loved you at OU, like that. There's more infrastructure there as to where I go to Tennessee and, oh, you're that kid from Oklahoma that we really liked and we've kind of forgotten about. Like, and again, we all know that's part of leaving the state. You kind of take that risk. As an in-state guy, you're always going to have a little more notoriety.
Now, Josh, we took a flyer last year. Tulsa Noah is playing Cassidy. You want to go watch Danny? And all right, he was sensational, but OU didn't feel like among his favorites. And then after the season, even going in the spring, the Sooners still felt on the outside looking in. How did OU get back into this race?
I don't know if it's somewhere between patience and persistence. I think would be the way I would say that. Talking to Danny at various points, he would talk a lot about almost kind of OU was so aggressive and pushing him so hard. And he talked about a trip he took to Oklahoma, the one trip he took when Lincoln Riley was still in charge. And he said, I liked the visit, but I didn't love it. I'd been on better ones. And I think he kind of wondered, like, is this the right fit for me? And so then when Venables came along, I think he was more interested, but he still kind of had that lingering feeling of, well, that's what Oklahoma is. I love the now that they've got a defensive guy in charge and I can grow under him and that staff, but it's still Oklahoma just didn't give me the, that warm feeling when I was on campus. And then he came back last summer. I think it was in May, if I remember right. And it was like, oh, this is different. This feels different. And then when he was on campus for the game, getting to be around the fans and seeing the energy being a little different amongst the players and the staff, I think that really turned him, because Danny is there's no question, he's a big vibes guy. Like, he wants to feel like, I'm part of something big here. I'm part of something that's happening here. And I think that's kind of what he got at Oklahoma. He felt like there was momentum in a direction he wanted to go in.
I mean, I think that just kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, just in terms of culture. Like, that is something that you do see right now, that they're talking a little bit differently. Now, again, what does that mean come Saturday? I don't know, but I think the statement could be made that Danny Okoye is not going to Oklahoma, or if he ends up choosing him. This wouldn't have happened a year ago. There's been steps made and things put in place, whether it be a soul program, whether it be just the culture of the players and what they're believing in right now with Brent and everybody on the defensive side of the football. Like, this just simply wouldn't have happened a year ago.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. If Danny Okoye was in the 2023 class, I don't think he'd be at Oklahoma, and I don't think Oklahoma would really be in that race. Because again, like before last season, he was very interested in Oklahoma, and then it really fell off as the season went on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just because I think Brent Venables, what was that, at Big 12 Media Days, when he talked about giving every guy a year, and then there was a lot of kind of bloodletting of guys that, and I don't know if it was fair to imply it or if he even insinuated it, but it felt like there was a lot of guys here that didn't have what we wanted to have in our program, didn't have the mentality, weren't bought into what we were selling, and those guys, I think they feel are gone now. And I don't want to paint any single guy with that brush, but I'm just trying to say, like, it feels like when I talk to these guys who go on these visits, there's not that, like, yeah, it seems like they're headed in the right direction. It's very much like those guys are bought in. Like that, and that's the thing that they all come away with. The guys they talk to, whatever, there's always the caveat of, well, 6 and 7 was bad last year, but those guys believe in that coaching staff. Like, they believe this is going to get fixed and they're going to go right. And that's part of why you're seeing Oklahoma with a chance to land its third straight top 100 defensive lineman in like a month.
Yeah, Josh, that's where I was going to go next. I don't want to put you on like a rankings, hot spot here, but you moved up. Danny moved up from 76 to 66 with the newest rankings. Is he closer to a 5-star or closer to the top 100 in what you see?
That's a really good one, Bob.
Bob's on a heater this week with questions. Had a good one at the Brent Venables presser yesterday.
That I like that a lot. I didn't hear it in real time. I forgot the presser was going on and didn't have my headphones in, so I had to go fix that problem. But I agree. I love that question. But this one, I would say probably closer to a 5-star, because you guys know me. Like, I want physical tools. If you can't teach a guy technique, then you shouldn't be in the position you're in at a place like Oklahoma. And again, we're watching Miguel Chavis teach a very similar canvas in PJ and a guy that's just been getting by on physical talent, because I still say this all the time. PJ was a tight end as a sophomore. He didn't move to defensive end until his junior year of high school. He knows nothing. He's still learning it all. Danny's the same way. You talk to the coaches there, you talk to Danny himself. Like, there's no understanding of like hand placement or leverage. Danny is big, fast, and strong, and that's all he needs right now. Now, obviously, once he gets to the college game and in first day of practice, he runs into Jacob Sexton, it's a very different animal than anything he's faced. So those are going to be things he's going to have to grow through. And talking to Danny when, kind of talking about what he's looking for in a school, he talked about, I don't want this to be easy. I want to go somewhere that is hard, that isn't promising me I'm going to walk on the field and be a guy. So I think Danny, wherever he goes, will buy into this is, like I've got to put the work in. I know I'm not where I need to be the player I can be. So to me, I have no problem with Danny Okoye. Like if you want to put him in that 5-star conversation, I think that's reasonable. I understand why you wouldn't. There are questions. There's 100% are. But to me, from a physical talent standpoint, there's not 5 defensive ends in the country you'll convince me have more physical talent than Danny Okoye.
I have a feeling like if you said that about David Stone, he would just go on a tweet rant against you. He lost 2 spots and he went on a tweet rant.
And he didn't lose.
Here's my thing about like the entire bitching about rankings. You're the number 7 player in the country in the all-encompassing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You're not being slighted. Like, that's a tremendous, unbelievable honor. Now, I like a kid that gets pissed off about that.
You and I were never that good at anything, so we don't understand.
But if I was like the number 7 ranked amateur golfer in the world, that's a tremendous honor. You're on the Walker Cup team.
I don't know if you were that good at golf.
You can want more and not be insulted. You don't have to be insulted because I want to be number 1.
I don't know.
I think it's crazy to say it, but at the same time, I also do love a kid that's like, F this. I'm the number 1 player in the country.
No, I mean, if I were the number 7 golfer in the country, I would be pissed off that 6 other guys were.
I guess golf's a little bit different though because it's merited, like it's based on how you perform in tournaments. But still, like same could be said for a basketball player or a baseball player or whatever. It's like it's all subjective at the end of the day.
Again, I'm the guy out in these streets defending Matt Campbell. Like I got no problem with a guy that's got some heat to him. Like that's fine. But
you're not going to be defending Matt Campbell that much right now.
We'll see about Saturday.
So like I said, I don't have a problem with him like letting that fuel the fire. Like that's great. Whatever you need to do. I mean, Kirby Smart's got guys out there believing people were saying Georgia was going to be 7-5.
Exactly.
Whatever gets it going. Fine. But like to be publicly mad about it, I don't know. Worry about things that matter. A drop from 13 to 15, it doesn't matter. No one cares.
And that's kind of the same thing. And talking about like what Satterfield said about Dillon Gabriel, it's like if you use that as motivation and as adding a chip on your shoulder, more power to you. If you can talk yourself into that, at the end of the day, you're a better competitor, I guess.
I just remember, like in the height of my baseball career, it was like this is a name I don't even know if Josh will recognize, but. We were playing Lawton High, and I was a sophomore. He was a senior, and Kelly Stinnett was their starting catcher at Lawton High.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I would sit there and I would watch his pregame, and I was like, my arm's stronger than that. Like, I could do that. I'm better than him. Like, I'm going to go out there and show that I'm better than Kelly Stinnett. Well, guess what? Kelly Stinnett played in the major leagues for like 15 years, so I was not better than Kelly Stinnett.
And then he goes like 5 for 5 with 3 bombs and pop times like 1-3.
Yeah, it was just one of those like, yeah, shut up, kid. You're a sophomore.
You know what? I'm gonna reverse course here. It's not often on this podcast that we hear we're wrong. I am all for David Stone saying what he wants to say, getting it off his chest.
There you go.
I'll say why, because it's something I do believe in, and I think I'm being a little duplicitous here. Ooh, drop that one in on you. I hate canned answers. I hate that. And so when we get upset with people for speaking their mind,
sure,
what's going to happen the next time? You're going to get bullshit canned answers. So say what's on your mind. That's fine. Nobody got hurt. David doesn't like the ranking. Use it as motivation. Everybody's fine.
Well, it's
I admire you for changing your stance.
It's like the Deion stuff. Like, love him or hate him, he says at least what's on his mind. Like, you can't sit and bitch about coaches always giving the coach answer or the coach speak, and then somebody does come along, but then the media plays it into something where you end up hating the guy. It's kind of like the golfer that made the big run in the PGA event, the PGA Championship. I can't remember his name. Michael Block.
Yeah.
And like it was a great story for 48 hours.
Off the cart or the bridge and all that.
Yeah, at the Colonial, got the sponsors exemption. Like it was a great story at the PGA Championship, but because media just drove it into the ground, and every time you got on Twitter,
there was backlash.
Every time you got on Instagram, well, you ended up hating the guy. He's turned into kind of a clown because the PGA Tour just runs him out all the time now. The media is the problem. Lincoln Riley's right.
Lincoln Riley's right.
Oh no! I stand with Luca.
Are we? I tell you what. Are we done with recruiting? You guys want anything else?
Unless you want it, Josh, I know that you posted the interview. You went to Elijah Thomas's game on Friday night.
Yeah.
You sent me back the video, and I think I just sent you back. Holy shit, he's unbelievable. That kid, just knowing that he's a junior too. The first clip of him just in warm-ups, one-handed grabs. He looks like a dude.
He has all the physical stuff you're looking for in a receiver. Guys, I hate to make this comparison. I don't love it. I was putting way too much on him, but there's some CD Lamb stuff there. And I watched CD at the same age. Similar frame, similar playing style, similar, movement, the way they have success is similar. Now, CD was playing a bigger brand of football playing in Houston. There's a little bit more known about CD than there was at Elijah at the same point, but I think you're talking about that kind of talent. I think he's a top 75 guy in the country. And if kind of like what I was saying with Danny, if there's 10 better receivers than Elijah, I want to see them. I don't know that I believe that. But guys, the crazy thing is he did this, and I was talking to Eddie and Bob before the pod started. There were 3 guys pretty much every snap for Eufaula dedicated to dealing with Elijah Thomas. Basically, they were playing 10 on 8 the rest of the field because they had a corner right up over him, trying to bump him, trying to get physical with him right at the line, trying to keep him from outs or anything quick. And then they had a safety that was not playing cover 2, was just straight up in I don't even know what you'd call it, like a box, almost a box coverage on Elijah Thomas over the top of him. And then you had a linebacker dropping deep into trying to get him on some crossing routes or a shallow post, trying to get underneath those passing lanes. So Eufaula was just whatever else we're going to do, you're not going to beat us. And yet I still think he ended up with 5 catches for 140 yards. Had an 81-yard touchdown at the start of the second half, and right before that had a 35-yard interception return for touchdown. He was, people, and I say this all the time, he's much better than the competition he's playing, but he dominated like he should have. He was so clearly the best guy out there.
All right. By the way, Dead Soxy, our good friends, want to remind you guys, go check them out, DEADSOXY. deadsoxy.com. Use that promo code SCOOP and you'll get 25% off your entire order, even sale items. We've told you about this before, but go to the website, check them out, deadsoxy.com. They've got a whole new collection of their colorways, of their crimson colorways. A lot of great. They got this athletic sock that's badass. It's red. It's got black and white stripes down the back of it. That looked pretty cool coming out of a suit. So go check them out. Check out the new colorways, the new crimson collections. They got the multi-packs. You can still get the Maker Bayfields, the wagons, all that stuff. Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. Use that promo code SCOOP, and you will get 25% off your entire order. All right, we now welcome in George Stoia. He's got his shades on. He thinks he's on camera, apparently.
Stoia.
See, we were sitting around the office, and the Voya commercial came on the other day, and I just laughed. And then George admitted that he did hate it when I came into the media room and did that.
It's just annoying. But it's all right. I've accepted it.
I'm annoying everyone today, so just take a seat.
I was about to say, are you and Eddie on good terms now? Because the last time, I have not heard most of the pod today, but the last time I walked by, I didn't know if you guys were on good terms.
I think we're fine. This is what happens.
Eddie's face maybe says something different.
Eddie does not want anyone to talk about anything uncomfortable, which is what I'm going to do right now. Because, George, of all the girls you're dating right now,
oh, Jesus Christ.
the one girl that I seem to like the most is the story you told yesterday, which I am kidding. He's not dating all kinds of women.
I'm dating one
We told him
woman.
not to do this. We told him,
and I don't even know if dating is the right term.
Yes, he's seeing
yes,
periodically a girl. But But she laid down the law on something that I thought was very interesting because we were talking about Charleston's. Eddie and I are both big fans of Charleston's.
Every week.
Always have. Like, if we had to, if there was a Charleston's in every location we ever went on the road, we would be eating there.
That wouldn't be a bad choice.
We'll
at
even
all.
take poor copies like Cheddar's and stuff like that. But
Charleston's is number one, though.
Charleston's is the best, and they're not even a sponsor. Give me a call if you want to be. But you said, we were talking about menu items, and I was like, for the money, they have the best filet that you can get. And we were talking about the Caesar salads and the croissant, and you said your favorite thing was the chicken tenders.
The chicken tender platter.
The chicken
Double
tender
fries.
platter. The girl that you're currently seeing from time to time said that you're not allowed to order that with her because it's a kiddie meal item.
Correct.
Which I agree with her 100%.
I don't give a shit.
It's just insane.
It's not if you're on a date with a woman.
Well, okay,
you
well,
should not be eating.
No, I
chicken
think
when
that's
you have
different.
other things.
That's
like
totally
get
fair.
this
Totally fair.
Parmesan crusted chicken.
Totally fair.
You shouldn't be getting that on a date either.
I wouldn't.
That's a little fattening.
I wouldn't order that if I'm on a date with someone. I would not,
Do you
order
get steak, Eddie? Is that the only acceptable menu item when you're on a date?
I mean, you can get whatever, but I don't think that you should be getting chicken fingers.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I never said I would do that with her or with anyone else.
She was just making
You
the blanket.
just said
She was
that
making
she
a
was
blanket statement.
She was making a blanket statement that I should never get it. Like even if I go there
even if
by
you're not with her?
by
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
or with my family or because my parents, it's their favorite place to eat, so we go eat there all the time.
And you get chicken fingers.
They come to Oklahoma City. They're like, let's go to
tenders.
Charleston's, and I'm like, of all the places to go, okay. And I love Charleston's, but I'm like, let's try something different. Anyways,
Let's go to the ranch. Let's go to Mahogany.
yes, there's a lot of places you can go. So,
kill the ranch right now.
anyways, that's whatever. But I like her, so I'll abide by the rule, or I just won't tell her.
George, as the married man, so Carey, you have to take a seat. You just relax
I'm
over
just
there.
sitting still.
You lesser being.
Yes.
I want to be really careful with setting parameters on these kind of things. Okay, that's the word of advice I will give you. I generally agree with the idea that I wouldn't get chicken tenders on a date. But her drawing this hard of a line on a very mundane topic, that's a concern, George. That's a concern. I'm just going to say that is.
I just really hope she doesn't listen to
I
this.
think this was more of a joking matter too. That
It is. Like
Okay.
I don't think it's like
It's just a
it's not
fascinating-
rules or
it's-
guidelines.
It's
Yeah.
a fascinating
I think
thing
it's more of a
because I agree with her.
She more indicated it's a red flag that's my favorite meal item from
at Charleston's, exactly.
Like she's
I
like, there's a
agree.
lot of better things to eat at Charleston's. That's her point.
The chicken fingers are good though.
They're so good.
You should get them whenever.
They are very
You
good,
should get
but-
them whenever you want.
You should get those to go. That's
Yeah,
how you
sure.
should
See-
eat chicken tenders from Charleston's.
But you have to reasonably test. Like you have to give her a few red flags. Like she's got to be into you as less than perfect because as you get older, your give a shit will drop. And so
yeah.
you're not going to be the perfect guy that you painted for her in the early days. And I don't, not just this girl, any girl ever.
Here's my question.
So you have to be careful of that.
Here's my question. Did it get in your head a
sweating
little
right
bit?
now.
Like maybe this girl is trying to say something about I'm too childlike. That she wants me to be a more of a manly man.
I don't know the answer to that question, Carey. I think she just was like when she asked what my order was, she was just like, really? I think that's what it was. I don't think it was like a bigger picture to this, but I'm uncomfortable.
That's fine. We can
To
move
get
on.
George out of this. To get George out of this.
We've extracted our
Charleston,
pound
when
of
you
flesh.
call-
I'm sweating right now.
When you call, my parents will be glad to do the ad read for Soonerscoop.com. They are avid Charleston's eaters, much as Carey and Eddie. So we've got a lot of ammunition here for potential Charleston's ad reads.
I love Charleston's.
It's great. All right.
Catfish.
Like I said, they don't even advertise. So George, welcome to your portion of the
Thank
pod.
you.
You dressed very nice today.
Yeah, this is all I had clean, and I know that we'll be doing some YouTube stuff today, so I was like, I need to make sure I wear at least a nice shirt, because I do read the YouTube comments, even though you guys tell me not to, and the shirts that Eddie and I wear often get a lot of comments of
People did not like the Modelo shirt, I don't think.
No, I don't think they like that. They don't
t-shirt.
like it anytime I wear a T-shirt.
Right, yeah.
Which I understand, but also it's like it's casual. We're having a good time. So I'm
But
going
here's
to
the
start
thing.
wearing collared shirts every time.
If you started dressing more shitty, then people probably wouldn't complain about the background as much.
Yeah, I don't understand the back. I don't know why people care, but I don't think the background's bad. Everybody says it
Eddie
looks
and
like
I
we're
are
in a
fixing it.
storage
We're
closet.
working.
but-
We're working to make it better.
I mean, I
It
guess
looks
is
like
just
you're in the
t-shirts.
depths of Soonerscoop.com. You're
They'll
just
find
in there
something
doing
else
the
to
work.
bitch about.
Yeah.
Probably.
That's why
But we
they're writing
said-
comments
we
on
said
YouTube.
That's what we wanted. We wanted more insane and irrational comments because that meant, by the way, we're over 11,000 subscribers. We appreciate it. Go subscribe if you're listening to the pod for even more content. We're eventually going to get Josh doing some more content as well. So we're working on some
Allegedly.
of that even tonight. I think we'll have some of that content coming to you.
What could it be?
Well, yeah.
Building 7.
Eddie has like blueprints now on his computer. I think he was showing me something the other day.
Blueprints.
Showed me something about Building 7 the other day.
He just brings up Building 7 in casual conversation.
Because nobody talks about it.
Okay, that's good. So George,
All I'm saying is steel beams, can they melt?
okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Now I'm nervous, George. So
Yeah, well, welcome to the party. I am just fingers crossed certain people don't listen to this podcast.
it's fine. I don't think you said anything that was bad.
No, I know. I'll tell you later.
Okay, so anyway, George, Cincinnati coming up. I know, you've been working on a lot of things, just big picture stuff moving forward. I think maybe the first thing we should talk about is, and I know this is coming later, but I talked to Andrel Anthony on Monday night, and I asked him about Jalil Farooq, and this is not meant to be like another war about Jalil Farooq. And I always want to say, Josh, I want to bring you into this too. You saw the best of Jalil Farooq, the guy that I thought could emerge for this offense against Tulsa. And Andrel Anthony's I think he's like Deebo Samuel. And even I was like, okay, pump the brakes a little on that. Deebo Samuel is one of the most electric and dynamic and physical, skill players in the NFL, the best league there is. Maybe a mini version of that, but you see him run through tackles and things not being tripped up at the goal line like most people would have gone down in that situation. I think I said that on the podcast, the post game. That shows you kind of that he's special.
Yeah, and I
know you talked to his coach, his
high school coach, and he gave the same comparison of Deebo Samuel. And I mean, is he going to end up being Deebo Samuel? Probably not. But I do think the sentiment of how they can use him is accurate.
It's the idea of it.
Yeah, and Josh would probably better know than I, but his high school coach was telling me, I mean, they used to use him as a running back. He would be out of the Wildcat. I mean, he would play wide receiver. So he did everything for them, and I think that's kind of what you can see. It seems like Oklahoma's starting to get that, whereas you didn't see it, in the first game, but the last two games, they're starting to get him more involved. And, I wonder what they can come up with, what, creative stuff Jeff Lebby can come up with, especially when you talk about the running back position, and they seemingly have not been able to get a whole lot going there. I'm not saying they're going to move Jalil Farooq to running back, but maybe you can do some interesting things where you get him the ball in the backfield and let him go make a play. But yeah, I mean, I'm all on the Farooq train. I was never not on the Farooq train, to be clear. My point was I thought somebody like a Nick Anderson might have a higher ceiling, and I stand by that. I just think that they need to find different ways to get Farooq the ball, and it seems like they're starting to do that.
Well, and I think the thing that, and you and I talked about this earlier when we were talking about story ideas and things, the thing to me that's interesting about Jalil Farooq, and I don't want to get too deep into this because you're going to have a story coming and stuff, is he's a DMV guy, and, Caleb Williams was a DMV guy, and, I just thought, he would be one of those candidates. Josh, you remember back to that. We all, and Eddie, I mean, we all thought, okay, well, they're probably going to lose Farooq, too. And then when they didn't, it was a shock.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's if Lincoln Riley would have recruited any of the players that were on the current Oklahoma staff, which he did not. So
George may have something to say about that in his story.
Did you guys see that thing from Nate Downs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed
Yeah,
it.
with Alex Grinch telling him, basically recruiting him that on the
Oh,
day.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was on Sam Mays' podcast.
I can tell you, I am working on a few stories and on several guys that were on that team, and that is a reoccurring theme.
Clearly
with
a lie.
lot, with several of the
And,
players.
like, I don't blame them. Like, that
No.
would be coaching malpractice if they were like,
Yeah,
just,
no.
but if you lie about it, if you say one thing and then your actions speak another thing, that's where I think it got sideways with them.
And it's such an easy thing to disprove. Like, it's not like oh, you gotta, you don't have to FOIA anybody. Like that's really straightforward.
Well, the breaking into his house was easy to prove. I mean, it's just like, and let's get into it because I mean, it's a perfect time to do it, especially with George here. Lincoln Riley has banned a local newspaper beat writer from covering the team for 2 weeks, which, guess what, Lincoln? There's a lot of people that go and do podcasts and have websites that, even with paywalls, that don't get to cover teams. Like, that's not going to stop anybody from doing their job, is practice media available. And by the way, they can just send one other person and they can send the transcripts back to that writer. He'll keep writing. I mean, there is so many things that are a negative on USC and Lincoln Riley's side to this versus, like, what's the I'm trying to think of the meme or whatever, but it's like, is that how you thought it was going to go? Did you really think it was going to go that way? And I think you said yesterday, what did you say about the guy in the hot dog suit?
The meme of we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Like, that's the card Lincoln's going to play, is like, he's going to be like, oh, well, which I mean, the clip of him yesterday, basically, he just was like, yeah, he broke the ethics code or whatever.
He said, I don't care about the media. I don't care about the fans. My job is to protect the players. From what? Walk-off comments?
It was a puff piece, too. Like, it wasn't like it was some scathing story. I mean, it was a puff piece about a freshman running back.
It was Lincoln Riley trying to bully a first-year reporter, basically.
And this isn't just any old newspaper. And this is the OC Register, the Orange County Register. This would be like the equivalent of Brent saying, Eric Bailey in the Tulsa World could no longer attend media availability. Like, that's how big of this is a massive newspaper that they're keeping out of availability. I mean, it's craziness.
And like you said, George, it's a puff piece. Like, and he talked about it with the media yesterday, where it's like, well, there were some factual inaccuracies of the kid overcoming his shyness. Like, what are we talking about? Like, there's some, like, I don't understand how this is the hill you would choose to die on.
Has it been bothering him so long that he couldn't ban me, that he had to go ban a kid at USC to get over it?
And the whole thing is, like, he's in LA. Like, he's about to learn that's a very different market. Like, they don't need him. They don't, like, there's bigger stories in Los Angeles than him. He's nothing by comparison. So they've got no problem burning his ass down.
Look, I think, then this is a bigger conversation and we can have it, but it's kind of like The Office. It's like people said, why are you doing this? Like, what is that? That doesn't make any sense. To me, I'm trying to prevent us as a company from becoming irrelevant, like from just becoming something like, we go out to practice every day, and I had this conversation with some people, and and it was like, you sit there and you see like 30 media people out there doing interviews, and I asked myself, like, okay, well, this person's a student, this person's from a website, this person's from a radio station, like, that not many people listen to. Like, how much reach is there really out there in the media these days? And I think it's growing smaller and smaller because people are getting their news from Facebook, or people are, getting their news from content farms or whatever you want. Like, what I feel like is my obligation is to grow a media company that has reach, that has some clout. And, like, that's what this is. Everybody wants to know, what's this all about? That's what this is about, because you see like newspapers failing left and right, and I know like the sellout crowd thing is starting, and they took Barry Trammell and Jenny Carlson, and they're trying to do some podcasts and stuff. They're trying to build a new media company. So it's like there's this way that universities, administrations have been able to say, well, we don't need the media. We don't need traditional media. We can be our own media. And it's because everything like newspapers have fewer subscribers, fewer readers. And so that's a thing. If you want the God's honest truth, universities don't care about local media. It's almost a hindrance to them because they feel like they can come in and swoop in and handle all of that, distribution and reach, and it only furthers, selling advertising and making more money. So in the context of all that, I think that's why that happened at USC.
Yeah. I mean, probably. I don't really know. I mean,
I think he's just being a dickhead to be a dickhead.
But at the same time, I thought back, I was like, if they're suspending him for this, why did they never suspend like the Daily kids when they
were on the roof,
looking at practice?
Yeah.
Like, and I thought, whatever.
It's because OU was smart enough to know this is a bad look if we do that.
Right. And
just like they were, I'm sure that he wanted me suspended when I called him a dick.
Yeah. And I'm not saying they should have been suspended. I don't think that they honestly did a whole lot wrong in that situation. But, I was just like, I can't believe they're suspending him for this. Like, this is so little in terms of what he did. And again, it was a puff piece. Like, it makes no sense. I don't know. And I think part of it is, it is a young guy. I know a lot of people have said, well, it's a kid, and that's what I mean. He's still 23 years old or whatever. He's just a younger reporter. Maybe they thought they could just get away with it because he's younger and it's his first year on the beat. Like, would they have done that to Bill Plaschke from the LA Times? No.
Yeah.
Like, they would have never done that. I think they thought they could get away with it because it was some young kid, not a kid, but a younger person, and that's just BS. Like, I don't know. It's just stupid.
Well, in a lot of it, from what I understand, is they were upset because he would talk to people after press conferences, and that's called a walk-off. That's been pretty standard for a very long time. I remember Bob Stoops used to do walk-offs after his press conference, and I remember the reason that ended is because Dave Sittler got mad at Barry Trammell because he would take the recording and play it on the radio show he was doing, and Dave Sittler was like, those are my questions in the walk-off. Like, that's supposed to be my property. Like, you're playing it for the world, and I'm trying to write columns off of this. And it caused a big stink and a big fight. A bunch of infighting happened. And so OU's like, okay, no more walk-offs. This causes too much confusion. But, nowadays, enough times pass, like, people don't know this, but, like, we go out to practice. There's a big scrum that interviews a guy. And a lot of times you, George, you'll wait till all the questions are done being asked, and then you'll walk up to the guy and you'll say, hey, I was working on this story. I talked to your coach, or I talked to your dad, or I talked to your mom. I wanted to ask you about this. And it helps you do your job. And OU allows that. Almost everybody I know allows that to happen.
Yeah.
But USC apparently saying they're crying foul.
And it was the same thing when I covered the team under Lincoln. You would try to do those walk-offs, and it was often a battle of, You talk to their parents without letting Lincoln know.
Right.
Like you talk to their high school coach without us knowing, and whereas it's a lot more. I mean, I can, I wouldn't say talk to anybody, but like I can call up whoever's parents, and it's not a big deal, and I don't hear about it. Like,
I will say this, like, we pretty much have the blessing of the highest order at OU, like to do those kinds of things. Like I don't think anybody's going to get in our way of trying to talk to a parent or a coach. I think they know that we're trying to tell really good stories that aren't, salacious, that aren't, out to damage anyone. Just tell good stories.
Yeah, and that's what it boils down
and that's
to.
the thing.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say that's the thing. Like, if the kid was trying to get some dirt on somebody or trying to find out about an injury or something, like, okay, like I get where you're coming from there, but that's not what happened. Like, that's not in the story. It's like, at least provide some context if that's what it is, rather than just saying
factual errors.
Well, this story, like, nothing happened in that story. It just, like, if you want to reprimand him or say, hey, we're not gonna let you be available for a day, like, okay, I guess fine. You're like trying to make your point. But 2 weeks? You're talking about like almost a fifth of the season.
Well, and my point was, like, if you really felt it was that serious to suspend him for 2 weeks, you feel like your players are being, taken advantage of or harmed, why are you letting him back after 2 weeks? Why not just say you're banned from covering the team because what you've done is harmful to our players? It clearly wasn't.
God. Is there anything that administrators and coaches, and not all, I don't want to lump everybody, but when they get into these conversations, is there anything they won't put under the umbrella of protecting our players? Like, it's all like, it's like the like back after 9/11, like everything fell under the terrorism. Like, oh, that's a terrorist. That's a terrorist. No, it's not all terrorism. Like, this is not all safety for players. Like, the player was not in danger. He wasn't done any harm. Like, nothing happened here. Like, it's such a nothing burger. And again, it's one of those deals where, like, I've said this since the day he left. There's an element of Lincoln Riley that just thinks everyone else is stupid. That just won't see what he's saying and the bullshit that is within it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it pretty much shows you how he looks at media and values media. So
the reporters gained like 3,000 followers overnight.
That reporter did?
Yeah.
Well, good for him. All right. I think, the Lincoln Riley thing, I wanted to talk about it. I don't think we have to go on anymore. I can tell Eddie's not interested.
I just don't think I really care. At the end of the day, I just don't care.
I will say,
I mean, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do about it? It sucks.
Yeah.
You just have to call him what he is, yeah.
I do enjoy everybody else kind of getting a little bit of a peek into what we were saying and how we were homers when everything, came crashing down and it said, well, maybe this is going to be for the betterment of the program. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that.
And again, OU, last 2 days, 16 players made available.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So shout out
Brent giving us lots of access at practice to go out and shoot.
I almost think that, like, as much as he says, oh, I'm just trying to protect the player, I think Brent's way of going about it and letting them get that experience, letting them kind of the thing at the beginning of the season when all the newcomers came in.
That was awesome.
It's like, I want them to be able to meet you guys, shake your hand, look you in the eye, and tell you about themselves. Like, be able to speak.
And the other thing about it is, like, his point in that was, we're recruiting high-quality kids.
Yeah.
And when we talk to players at OU, I can't ever remember a time, ever, in 20 years, where I felt like no matter who's coming out to talk to us, they're going to be good interviews. They're going to answer questions in a genuine and honest way, and they're not going to be scared or like we talked. Like Walter Rouse just held court one day. They attract those kind of kids.
It's a little bit like the parents that like. Oh, what's the term? Helicopter or overbearing. And then that kid ends up being the craziest kid that in college because he was never able to get real life experiences.
Kids, if you lived in small town Oklahoma, preacher's kids were the wildest of all.
At the end of the day, it starts at the top and it goes back. It just, I remember I never spoke to Lincoln outside of the press conference. Whereas I've only been on the beat now a few months. Brent Venables called me on his personal cell phone for that story I wrote before the season. Mm-hmm. And because he knew the value in it and gave me, 15, 20 minutes of his time. And I mean, that would have never happened under Lincoln. And I think Brent understands the importance of, relationship with the media and what that can mean for his program, and in putting his players on display, himself on display. Like he gets that. And I think that again, does that win games on Saturday? Probably not, but it's appreciated by the media, and maybe I don't know. It's a bad perception for Lincoln to do what he's doing because it just creates an unnecessary distraction.
We've never been able to find any situation while he was the coach here where Lincoln called a media member to talk to them.
Yeah.
Now he called one guy. I won't say the name because I don't want to put out other people's business, but I know he called one person after he left, one person for sure. He might have called others just to say, hey, thanks for the coverage, while you're out there. But he screwed that up royally. Like Bob Stoops would call people to iron things out all the time. Or if he had a media session, I remember during the Charles Tapper era, who was the defensive tackle that just quit. Like he had concussions and there was all
Walker.
that, Charles Walker.
Charles Walker. Yeah.
Like I'd asked Bob about it was like after he'd been gone and I asked him like is he coming back to the team, and Bob said something a certain way. I think he did it, he was emotional when he said it, and then I don't think he was sitting with it after the media session, and I was the one that had asked the question. So he like called me on my way home, and that would happen on a regular, that would happen regularly. And it wasn't just me, it was other reporters where he would want to say, look, I want to talk to you more about what I said because I want to give you some backstory so you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
That never, ever once happened with Lincoln to anybody.
Yeah.
And if you're a head coach, that's part of the job, man, is having some personal dealings with media members. But he'll never do that.
He barely has personal meetings with his staff. Like,
right.
I mean,
they were all in the
always
dark.
The weirdest part.
That's
they
why
were all
he would,
in the dark with the USC thing.
That's why it's so funny when everybody's like, well, is he going to go to the NFL? And maybe he does go to the NFL someday, but boy, would he hate the media in the NFL because he'd have to
You
speak.
have to do it every day.
6 days a week. You are doing a press conference and you're talking to everybody. You're doing media all the time, one-on-one interviews. I mean, he would not like that. So
well, shit, he'll do a one-on-one interview anytime if you do it in his house, apparently.
yeah. I don't know. That's enough Lincoln Riley talk. I think people are.
That was probably
Let's talk
therapy,
football.
as much therapy for us as anything. No, I mean, but Cincinnati coming up. Guys, I think this is interesting from the perspective that this is still a team that has remnants of a college football playoff contender on the defensive side of the ball, especially up front. I mean, it's not, they lost obviously last week in double overtime in a game where Emory Jones did not play well down the stretch, but I mean, people are pretty familiar with Emory Jones. He's been around a lot of college football, Arizona State, Florida. Now he's at Cincinnati. I don't know.
It can't go both ways where it's like you celebrate and like how veteran and I guess longevity Dillon Gabriel's had, and then just dismiss it for Emory Jones, right? Like,
Right.
and I think Dillon Gabriel's a better quarterback, but I mean, it's a little bit scary just in terms of what this task is on Saturday with a possible first career start for Caden Green, a defense that seems to be good, but I think that they need to go out and do it against a functional offense. Even Tulsa was able to move. Like I walked into halftime Saturday and I was telling Cade McFarland, I was like, I thought OU played awful in the first half, particularly in the second quarter. And they were up, whatever it was, 38-14.
Yeah, they had that bad second quarter, which, their secondary did not look good.
And even the first drive of the third quarter, like Tulsa moved the ball straight down the field. They had to settle for a field goal, which was interesting, down 24. But it's a good enough test that I think that you can start truly checking some boxes if you go up. It's kind of like I told George on the YouTube show last week. You go up to Tulsa, and they're a terrible football team, but can you dominate a team? Can you step on the throat? And they did that. So you give them credit there, but
again, that was 75% OU fans
Sure.
in the stands. This is going to be 90%, 95% Cincinnati fans.
Well, and I think that, it's kind of like what Brent said, and we're going to talk about it on the Cincinnati preview show. How good is this defensive line? I know that they're ranked number 2 in the country in the rush defense, but you get Emory Jones and the Cincinnati rushing attack going, they could present some problems. I could buy into that. And just as
Shorten the
much
game.
and just as much with OU and the inability to run the football right now, can they move a defensive line off the football?
It's a fair question. And George, we talked about this kind of opening up, but this is in terms of a challenge or the crossroads. Like this is where OU was a year ago. And I know you were in Denver covering the Broncos, but everyone was so happy after that Nebraska game, thinking that Brent Venables was going to be the savior. And the other thing, Eddie, is like you can't discount last year, like how much the fans got behind the program as kind of a FU to Lincoln.
Yeah.
And
That's all that was for the first month and a half.
Yeah, it was okay. We're going to be okay. Lincoln didn't screw us after all. and then it all came crashing down. But like they're in the exact same position right now. I mean, people are trying to write the turnaround story, and we don't know if it's turned around yet.
Yeah, and I think Saturday can answer some of that. I mean, I remember my dad calling me. He went to Lincoln last year with my brother, and I remember him calling me after the game and being like, I think they can make the national championship. And I was like, yeah, they looked great out there. And then, it turns out Nebraska's terrible and OU was not very good. And, I think I still think there's quite a bit of hesitancy from a lot of people about this team. And Saturday, I think everybody's already just jumped to that Texas game. To me, there's two next steps. It's on Saturday. The next step, if you go win Saturday, then yeah, I'm not saying the whole program is changed and they're going to be a national title contender, but yeah, it's a step in the right direction from where the hell they were a year ago, right? But then if you can go beat Texas, then yeah, then we can start talking. If you go beat Texas, probably the best Texas team we've seen in a while.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden you can talk about Dillon Gabriel, Heisman, and college football playoff hopes, all that stuff. But right now, a lot of people just want to see him go beat a decent average Cincinnati team because last year. I don't know if they beat the Cincinnati.
I don't think
team.
that they would have beat SMU a year ago.
Yeah, and so that's
and they
why
ended up winning by 17.
And that's and to me, honestly, I know
and didn't play well.
Everybody's talking about Cincinnati, and then they're a scary opponent or whatever. They can sneak up on you. OU, in my opinion, should go win this game by 2 or 3 scores, and they should look up in the fourth quarter and this thing's handled.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I want to see too. I want to see Jeff Lebby knowing he's going into a big stage in a big game. And calling a really good game.
The game plan needs to be great.
Like the SMU, he was way too conservative, and then he learned from that, and he started chunking the ball down the field. Very first play against Tulsa, like is that the Jeff Lebby we're going to?
And I think it also helped though that like Tulsa was allowing you. They were saying,
I mean they weren't a great team at all, but I'm just saying it was 39-19 run to pass at one point in that SMU game.
And I think this is also a game that you want to see them. And they're running the ball okay. I think they're averaging.
It's better than you think, but it's not good. Is that fair?
Yeah, but this is a game. I don't care how much you run for it. It needs to come in the fourth quarter when you're up, 10, whatever, however many points. If you're up in the fourth quarter, being able to go on that 5-minute, 6-minute, 7-minute drive to put the game away. That's what I want to see in this game. And I don't know. We'll see how the game plays out. But can they do that? And it feels like they've been kind of waiting to unleash some of what they're trying to do. I mean, you look at what they're doing at the running back rotation. It's like
who starts Saturday?
Probably Tawi.
That's what I think too.
I think he's their best.
Who do you think, Josh?
I think it's Tawi. Not in love with it, but I think that's. I mean,
if it is Tawi,
the best defense they faced, he was the most productive player.
But doesn't that also signal a little bit of conservative, approach?
Maybe.
I think it just depends.
There's also got to be something for earning it. Like, there's been some stuff that Barnes has just missed. And you guys know I love Javonte Barnes. He's had some running lanes at times that he has not taken advantage of. Like, I don't know what else to say about that. Now, I do wonder if maybe Sawchuk gets a little more of the like, because he was out there Saturday, but he didn't really have a role.
Mm-mm.
I mean, he got a few carries, but it was much more modest. And it's always felt like to me they saw Sawchuk as the guy. Like, as the guy that could really be that explosive kind of difference maker. And if Sawchuk's your number one, I don't hate Walker as your number two. Like, I can live with that balance. But you got to have somebody who's going to scare a defense that this guy could take it to the house if we're not, if we're not locked in.
I'll go back to what I said earlier about Tawi. Like, I think he's a good running back, but I think he couldn't be a better running back if you use him the right way. And I don't think starting him is using. I think bringing him in when a defense has been battered around a little bit for a quarter or two as a change-up is the best way to use Tawi.
Yes. I mean, I could see Tawi being the fourth quarter guy, the closer.
Right,
I mean, that's where I think his role could be. OU
used to have that, and they did that with Trey Sermon. Like, you had Kennedy Brooks, the guy that you didn't really understand how he was doing it, but he was, breaking off big runs, and then all of a sudden you'd bring in Trey Sermon. He was like a battering ram.
Yeah, and I agree with Josh. I think Gavin can end up being, he can end up being that guy that ends up being their bell cow. But I don't know. And I thought Barnes was. I mean, we rewatched the game on Monday. He had some nice runs.
Probably better than you think. And
Yeah.
and I told my dad, it's like, I think they ran the ball probably better than you think. They averaged 4.2 a carry, which you can probably live with, but it's not championship level or anything
Barnes,
like that.
I mean, it was a bad team they were playing. They weren't as good as SMU defensively, but Barnes averaged over 5 yards a carry, just like
Against
Tawee
SMU?
Walker did. Tawee did against SMU,
I got
and
you,
then
I got
Barnes did against Tulsa.
But guys, you also have to remember that. I mean, I know we're kind of writing off TU. Their run defense against Washington wasn't bad either. Like they have some track record of maybe this is. I mean, not like it's a proficient group, and Oklahoma's certainly going to face more talent against Cincinnati with a couple of NFL defensive tackles they've got there with Briggs and Corleone. But it's not like Tulsa's. I mean, there is some indication that Tulsa's a pretty decent run defense. I mean, Washington ran for 113 on 22 carries. Excuse me, 109 on 22 carries. So like they averaged some decent pops, but they had one carry. One is to Jalen Polk, one of their receivers. So I'm guessing that's a jet sweep or something like that for 27 yards. That's over almost a fourth of their total yardage for the day was on one carry.
And I think we also, and I've said this a couple times, but I think we also just point towards the running back and we're like, well, maybe they don't have a running back. I think this falls more on the offensive line. Like, I just don't think they had a great game. Yeah, I don't know if they've had a great game in the running game.
Admittedly, there were. I mean, even Josh, you said it. Like Tyler Guyton. I'm not gonna.
He just flat out missed.
He had a bad
plays.
night.
Yeah,
he had a bad day at the office.
Yeah, it just, and that's the thing. Like, and I feel like this is something that we see. And guys, I don't know. I can't remember if I talked about it on this, but I was listening to Cole Kubelik, and he was talking, and he was just talking about offensive lines taking longer to kind of find their rhythm than other positions on the field. They're like, because just for the way they have to work together and the intricacies of what they do, it's kind of like watching all the stunts OU's doing on the defensive line right now. They looked much better with all of those on Saturday than they had at any point prior, and I think it's just finding the rhythm and game speed. The offensive line is trying to do that as well, while also having to shuffle in, a new left guard, and they're moving in, Jacob Sexton got a lot of snaps on Saturday. So they're trying to find that cohesion while also getting their depth, some experience. I think this is going to be a good group. I think it might be a pretty good group. The best in the country, like Walter Rouse has talked about, I don't see that. I think you needed Savion Byrd to be a dude if you were going to have that kind of conversation, and I just don't see that. So I think it can be a really good group. And guys, last year at this time, we weren't watching Oklahoma's offensive line blow people off the ball. And by the end of the year, that rushing game was pretty much their offense. I mean, they were just shoving people around up front. Even in the Florida State game, they had the better of things. So I think just giving it time, this group is going to get better. They're going to improve. The nice thing for Oklahoma is they get this test against Cincinnati. Then they get to come home, play Iowa State, who looks like they're in real trouble, and then you go see Texas. So you get a taste. This offensive line is going to get a feel for what that Texas group's going to feel like. And I think Oklahoma, you look at how Texas had success against Alabama, a lot of edge, a lot of pressure on the edge. Oklahoma is much more capable and much more ready to deal with that than Alabama was with guys like Rouse and Guyton. That I think they can deal with what Texas has on the edge a little better, because I don't think Anthony Hill is going to overwhelm Tyler Guyton with athleticism.
Just staying on the outside, too, I kind of forgot. What did you think of Nick Anderson coming out of high school out of Katy and what he put on tape on Saturday? Are you buying in to what he's offering?
Oh, I'm all in. I think he might end up a first-round pick. Like, I'm that in on Nick Anderson after one game. Oh, I'm huge.
I said he's I mean, I don't know if it's comparable to this exact player, but I think he could be the best wide receiver they've had since CeeDee Lamb. Like, I think he's that same category. Like, I think that's
better than Marvin?
Yeah.
Really?
I love
because
Marvin.
of his length,
which, by the way,
size.
Marvin Mims, if any Broncos fan is out there, they need to be playing that man more. Only 16 snaps against the Commanders, just criminal. Anyways, yes, I think he has his athletic ability is higher than Mims.
It's crazy. And Josh, I know that you tweeted it after the game, but for a room that had as many question marks as they did, and credit Emmett Jones for what he's been able to do with them, the wide receiver unit is definitely a strength right now of Oklahoma offensively.
Guys, I mean, with the take quarterback out of it. That's the strength of that offense right now.
Yep.
Is that wide receiver room. Like, that's crazy considering the conversations we were having. And how talent. I mean, the running back room's not like bad. The offensive line's not been bad. I mean, because we can talk about the run, the run blocking, but pass blocking's been outstanding for the most part. Really, Tulsa got one pressure, and it was the eventual interception that Gabriel threw. So, I mean, they got a little more than that, but that was the only one where he was really under duress. So, you look at it, and you're like, this group, there's some real talent there, and you haven't even started to really. Gavin Freeman hasn't gotten going yet. Gavin Freeman hasn't done anything. Other than the big punt return, really. Jaquez Petaway still finding his way a little bit. He got some run on Saturday. So I think there is they're just kind of getting to it now. Eddie, I did want to answer, and I'll do it quickly. You asked about Nick Anderson.
Yes.
Obviously, for those that don't remember, Nick was committed to Oregon for a long time in his recruitment, so he wasn't really a guy I covered a lot. I remembered him vaguely from being a kid when Rodney was a recruit. But when I got word that Oklahoma was making a move and was going to offer him, I go out and see their playoff game. And Nick is not playing. It's Katie like in the second round. They're going to beat somebody's doors off, and he wasn't really needed, so he sat out. Well, so I'm texting him during the game, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm here, wanted to do an interview with you, blah, 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 because I can see him on the sideline. He's just looking at his phone. I'm like, okay. So I message him, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do any interviews, because he hadn't decommitted from Oregon at that point, but we all kind of knew it was coming. And he didn't play. He didn't do anything, but just so I didn't get a chance to really watch him in person. But I knew the family, and you watch the tape, and you're like, well, he can run. Like,
Sure.
I don't know what else he can do for sure, but he can run, and he's taller than Rodney is, and Rodney was a tall back to begin with. So I liked him. I can't say that I thought he was going to do this, but I will say, guys, and I'm sure you guys probably heard the same stuff last year. Almost immediately when he got on campus, I thought Jaden Gibson was going to be the guy everybody was telling me about. It was Nick from Word Go. They're like, this he's a freak. He's special. And Carey, here's a name. I don't know if George and Eddie will even remember this guy, but he's so big, and knowing the kind of the way that the Andersons just work out and they get bigger and stronger. There's some David Boston there, just so big and powerful and explosive. Like, I don't know that he'll ever get. I mean, David, I think at the NFL at one point was like 230 pounds or something. I don't know that Nick will ever be that big, but like there's some of that from his Ohio State time.
That's a positive. That was I knew that he's pretty good, but I did not realize that you guys were so high on him. Real quick before we get out of here, I know that the Justin Harrington stuff, we've talked about it on the YouTube show. George, I don't know like how much we want to get into this. It's just like at the end of the day, I'm getting closer and closer to thinking that we don't see him the rest of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't know how. I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there. Everybody knows it's a knee injury. It's just the question at hand is, does he want to, go ahead and have surgery on the injury and get a medical hardship, which he could return for his sixth year, or does he want to try and play on the injury at a limited capacity in what would be his final season?
Let the NCAA deny that waiver and we riot.
Yes,
I mean,
I feel bad for the kid, man, because it's such a tough decision, and he was playing so well. And I mean, I documented his story a couple weeks ago, and just all he's been through to get to this point. You just feel for the kid, and I don't know. It sucks. And I don't want to get into exactly what it is. Just
you were very sad in the YouTube
I was. I feel bad for the guy.
Yesterday.
I mean, he offered to make me mac and cheese. He's a very well, very, very good cook, and I don't know. He just seems like a great kid, and it sucks for that to happen.
But as much as I think we all love Justin Harrington's story, if it allows somebody else to get on the field and I thought he played well when he was out there, obviously, but if it allows a Peyton Bowen to get more snaps, if it allows some of these other guys to get on the field, Robert Spears Jennings or whoever they're going to put at the cheetah position, maybe Kip Lewis, Samuel Musigo. I don't know.
The new guy,
I'm interested.
Deshaun.
They got to get, I know that I mess up a lot of names, but just completely calling the guy the wrong name in front of the head coach is a little weird. But getting Deshaun out there this week is a positive, right?
Yeah, no, he
needs to play.
Yeah, he needs to
He's
play.
played a quarter.
I don't know if he'll start on Saturday, but he needs to play, and I think we'll see quite a bit of him just in some situational stuff. Anyways, we're trying to order lunch, and
we're pressed for time today, so we're trying to get some lunch ordered. No, but look, and I think Deshaun will start if in Cincinnati if he's ready to go.
Oh yeah, I think he starts on Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it might be Peyton Bowen.
Really?
We just can't agree on anything in the office.
Just
today.
in terms of because that's what Cincinnati's presenting offensively.
I just think Peyton Bowen's been playing great, and he's I think he started there on Saturday against Tulsa
in the cheetah position.
I can get behind slowly bringing him back because he's missed several weeks.
And remember, Deshaun hasn't played. I don't even know if he's played a snap at cheetah. When he got hurt, he was in there in a situational role.
He was with Harrington. Game,
So
I am kind of interested to see what it seems like things ramp up when you get to conference play. Like what new stuff is Brent going to present defensively to give somebody like an Emory Jones a problem?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
No. I was going to just say McCullough just seems like such a perfect fit for what for having that guy near the line of scrimmage to deal with Emory Jones, like to whether you're going to bring him off the corner, there's just a lot that with the way Cincinnati wants to run the ball, that seems like a really natural fit, a good time to have him on the field for a lot of snaps because Brent talked about it during the preseason. They were more comfortable with Justin in pass situations and his ability to drop because all of his experience at safety, while Deshaun's a little better coming downhill and playing against the run. And with the way Cincinnati wants to try to get physical up front, that just makes all the sense in the world to me. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and argue about less snaps for Peyton Bowen. I think every time that guy's on the field, good things just tend to happen.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this week. We've got we're busy today. We've got some taping to come for the YouTube after this. We'll hear from Cincinnati beat writer for
The Athletic, Justin Williams.
Justin Williams this week on the preview show. So looking forward to getting that together. Josh, been good catching up with you. And we may or may not hear more from you very soon, depending on Danny Okoye's decision tonight. Coming up in the is it Tulsa proper where we're going tonight?
It's Bixby, America.
Oh, it's Bixby. That's right. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So 6:30. Get on YouTube /Sooner Scoop. Get your alarm bells on for whenever we put something up, so you'll know if anything comes out and needs to be watched.
Yeah, youtube.com/Sooner Scoop. Also, don't forget, what we're here all about is Soonerscoop.com. Great deals going on right now. Go get signed up for Sooner Scoop. The season is here. A lot of stuff from Bob Prisbillo, great feature writing from George Stoia, and access to us 24/7 on the message board. So go sign up. That's what we're here all about. That's why we're here. That's why we do stuff on YouTube and the podcast, just so you guys know about us and who we are. So that's how we really pay the bills is the subscriptions from Soonerscoop.com on the On3 network. So thanks so much for everybody for listening. We'll be back another week from now after the Cincinnati game. Looking forward to the Iowa State game. So thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.